Yes, Amy's here tonight. Some of you are like, who's Amy and who are you? If you're new here tonight, I'm Dusty. This is my wife, Amy, and we're starting a new series tonight. It's called Thrive, where we're looking at the major relationships in our lives. Next week, Children Who Thrive. I'm going to be doing that one. The week after that, Singles Who Thrive. Pastor Adriana Cervantes is going to be preaching that one. The week after that, Women and Wives. Pastor Ruby is going to be doing that one. And then we'll finish the series off with Men and Husbands. I'll get to do that. But tonight, my sweet wife Amy is here with me. We both have the privilege of kicking this series off with marriages and couples who thrive. So, if we're going to talk about marriage, we're going to end up talking about our own marriage a little bit. So we thought we'd give you a little bit about us, tell you a little bit about our history. By the way, you'll notice Amy won't talk for the first few minutes. That was at her request. She just gets to come out here and kind of, she doesn't do this whole lot. I am able to talk her into it like once every 3 years or something like that, and she's a good sport. But she always does so awesome. So anyway, she will talk eventually. And you can interrupt any point you want. That's true too. But Amy and I have known each other since like kindergarten. True story. We're both from the same little town in Missouri. We got a prom picture. We started dating in 1992. Amy was 15 years old. I was 16. So I was the one that drove. We were both non-Christians. We didn't go to church much, either one of us. But we came to Christ around the same age. In 1993, we were off and on as a high school couple, mostly on, but a little bit off. We dated 6.5 years through high school. We both went to Bible college, mission trips, and early ministry until we got engaged in 1997. 1997, I started full-time ministry in Missouri. Amy became a fourth grade teacher. I have a picture of her as a teacher.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
She was, legitimately, there was always a wait list for her class, parents in that town at that public school. So great. But she basically served as an unpaid, full-time ministry partner with me at that church. We got married in 98. We got a wedding picture here, but next to it, so you got us on our wedding day, and then someone took this picture of us. I say dancing. Amy was out there dancing with everybody. I was just kind of like, what? But I don't remember this picture being taken, but they sent this to us, and I was like, this is so cool. Our wedding picture, she's looking at the camera. We're at someone else's wedding, and I was looking at the camera. I thought that was pretty cool. We celebrate 28 years this June, so just here in a few months, 28 years. What? Come out. 2004, 7 years into ministry, our first son was born. His name's Asher. And a year later, when he was 1, we'd been at that church in Missouri. We've only been at one other church in ministry. We were there 8 years. And in 2005, a year after Asher was born, June 2005, we moved here. And I became the high school pastor here at Shepherd Church. A few years later, 2009, our youngest son, Silas, was born. Amy stayed home with both of them from the time Asher was born until just a couple of years ago when we were able to talk her into working here at the church. And so she gets to work and serve here now. So that's a little of our family. Asher will be 22 here in like less than a month, like in a couple weeks. Silas turned 17 in June. Here's all four of us here Christmas Eve, so just, a few months ago. And then one last picture. This rounds our family out. This is our dog. You can guess his name. If you don't already know it, his name is Chief. We're from Missouri. You'll hear more about that from Amy. Okay, so that's a bit about us. And if I were to put in one sentence what we hope to encourage you with tonight is this. A thriving marriage is not found. It's not left to fate. A thriving marriage is formed, it's built, and it's intentional. So if you're taking notes, if you have your bulletin inside of that as a handout, has some fill in the blank for notes. Point number one, and just so you know, Amy starts at point number two, so we're getting there. But point number one is a myth, in our opinion. Here's the myth. When I find the right person, everything will work right. It'll be effortless because we're soulmates and we're gonna live happily ever after. That's what all the movies say, and that's what's gonna be in store for us. But here's the problem staring us in our romantic faces. That the United States divorce rate hovers right around 50%. There's some nuance there, but here's what we want to say. Every divorced couple that ever stood up in a church or in Vegas, right, with their friends and family and loved ones in front of a pastor, every divorced couple at one time stood in front of their people absolutely convinced that they had found the one. So either about half the people accidentally just choose wrong, or the very nature of finding the right person is flawed, this idea. But still, so many people, they make this massive life-changing decision. I'm talking about marriage, of course. They make this big decision based on really big emotions. Now, let me transition a little bit to the other side and say something that is true. Romantic love, the feelings that are accompanied by romance, are absolutely real and fun and wonderful. But it's also chemical, literally. Falling in love, all the emotions that go with that actually activates the same part of our brain that is activated when you do cocaine. It's just all the dopamine that's released. Now, those emotions are great. I'm talking about the love emotions, not the cocaine ones, all right? That might feel great too, but not for long. But these emotions shouldn't guide these life-altering decisions like intimacy and marriage. Falling in love is wonderful. Landing there takes work. And landing matters infinitely more than the fall, the emotional fall. Because when you're go back to the cocaine analogy, when you're high on love, when you're high in love, you'll overlook, you'll excuse, you'll ignore, you'll miss things about the person that were always there. You were just rose-colored glasses. And then one day when you metaphorically sober up, you suddenly are thinking, this is not the person that I was dating. This is not the person who I married. But yes, they are. That is the person that you married or were dating. You're just now seeing clearly. A thriving marriage doesn't happen by fate. It is formed intentionally. And that begins here with point number 2.
All right, point number 2. Replace finding the right person with becoming the right person. We all have lists. We want someone that's kind, faithful, good personality, emotionally healthy. We want them to follow the Lord and live out their faith, right? Lists are great, but are you becoming that person? We don't go to a gym once and have total body transformation. Although, how cool would that be?
Great.
Oh my gosh. We could eat more nacho cheese. I don't know. Why would we walk into a marriage expecting it to just work, right? What you work on will grow. So here's 2 truths about our character that affect our relationships. The first one is character is greater than chemistry. If you've been around Dusty for more than 2 seconds, you've probably heard him say this quote: character is everything.
It's everything.
Because it's the only thing that we really can control. It's decisions that we've built based on who we are, right? And so in Galatians 6, 5 and 7, it says, we are each responsible for our own conduct. We reap what we sow. Chemistry sparks attraction, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. But it's your character that sustains and deepens your relationship. Point B. Preparation is greater than promises. Promises are wonderful, but empty if they are not backed up by action. James 2, 15 through 17, it says, suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but you do nothing about their physical needs, what good is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, it's dead. The same is true about our relationships. Promises, they don't reveal character, patterns do. If you kind of trace the dots backwards in your own life, it reveals who you are today. Andy Stanley, he's another one of my guys, he tells a story about this college girl who, she went to a friend's house. She met this guy who she thought was great. He had all of her lists, you know. He had the great character, integrity. His personality was amazing, and he seemed to have a really strong faith. And she was a Christian, but just kind of deep into the party world, and was confused on, why am I not meeting a guy like this in the clubs that I go to? So she went home and she told her mom, who she was really close with, and she said, Mom, he was everything that I'm looking for. And her mom, who loved her and who was honest, said, oh, sweetheart, why would a guy like that be looking for a girl like you? And yeah, hard to hear, hard to say as a parent. I think the mom knew Proverbs 27:6 that says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy says what you want to hear. Because here's the truth. We don't attract what we want. We attract who we are. And so as you are becoming the right person, you'll be ready for what God has for you.
Yep. Point number 3, if you're taking notes, thriving marriages are built on complementary strength, right? Complementing each other, not necessarily just with words. You'll see what I mean. But opposites can attract. This is about as opposite as you can get personality-wise. And we knew this early on. But similar personalities can also attract. Like this idea that only opposites attract, I think that just makes for an interesting movie, right? And so that gets romanticized more, but similar personalities attract as well. The key is not opposite or similar. The key is how Amy compliments me in our lives, how I compliment her. Again, I'm not talking about words. Genesis chapter 2. So very beginning of the Bible, or real close to it. Genesis 2 is the creation of the world. After that, God has made people. But he's made the first human being, a man, Adam. And in verse 18 of Genesis chapter 2, it says, the Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. Now that word, the Old Testament was written originally in the language of Hebrew. And this word for helper, that word does not mean weaker. It's not there. In Hebrew, it means protect, support, strengthen. So that's verse 18, Genesis chapter 2. Verses 21 through 22, God, or the text shows God creating Eve, the first woman, from Adam's side, his ribs. Put him to sleep and makes Eve from Adam, right? And there's some poetry going on here, totally literal, sure, I don't know. But I love what this scholar, Matthew Henry, wrote about this idea of Eve, the woman, being made from Adam. He said, she was not made out of his head to rule over him. Guys, you like that, right? But pay attention. He said, nor out of his feet to be trampled upon by him, but out of his side to be equal with him, under his arm to be protected, near his heart to be beloved. Isn't that good? God creates Eve and he brings her to Adam. And Adam is a nerd, clearly, because in verse 23 of Genesis 2, he breaks out into poetry. He says, she is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And the idea here, what this means, is that where one is weak, the other is strong, and vice versa. God designed us not to compete, but to complement one another in the ultimate relationship, which is marriage. Amy and I see this in our marriage. I'm fairly decisive. I'm very direct. When there's conflict, I want to deal with it right away. Amy will talk more about that in a moment. Amy has a super high emotional intelligence, high EQ. She feels deeply for other people. She serves immediately. And she can juggle a lot of things at once. I cannot. I think as I talk. Like I've made a joke the last few years. Someone asked me a question, and I said, well, I'm a verbal processor. As I talk, I'll figure out what I think, right? Amy needs time to process, and then she talks about what she thinks, what she feels. So we're different. And our differences aren't problems, they're strengths when they're used at the right time, when the other one needs it. And if you find that you're married or dating someone who's very similar to you, that's fine. You're still not exactly the same. You come from different families, you have different experiences, and those differences will help strengthen and complement one another, even though you might be very similar in your personality. Genesis chapter 2, the first part of verse 24, it says, this is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife. I'll read the last part of that verse in just a moment. But when Moses wrote this, some 7,000 years ago-ish, the wife, he says the husband, the man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. Literally, though, what happened in Moses' culture is that the woman would leave her family and move in with the man's tribe. God's not saying that's not going to happen anymore. What he's doing is he's saying, making something really clear then and now, that marriage becomes the primary relationship. It's above parents, even though back then they kind of all still lived in the same compound area, their little tribe. It's above other family, siblings, friends. Your spouse is above all, because Genesis, the second part of verse 24 in chapter 2, it says, and they become one flesh. Now, this is far more than physical. In the Hebrew language, that word for one flesh, but just the word one, it literally means a oneness with multiple parts, layers. In other words, it's an emotional, spiritual, relational oneness that takes place. It's a partnership that God designed to complement, to strengthen, and to protect. So this is a little of what marriage is. These next few points are what it looks like to actually live it out.
All right, let's do this. We're going to start with letter A, choose vulnerability. Genesis 2:25 says, Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. In Scripture, nakedness it refers and represents being fully known, not just in the literal sense, but just your whole being. Dusty fully knows me. He knows my weaknesses. He knows my strengths. He knows my fears and my hopes. He knows my likes, my dislikes. He knows that when the Kansas City Chiefs are on in our living room, I morph into a crazy person and just scream for my team. He knows me, and he fully loves me. This part of our relationship did not happen by accident, nor did it happen overnight. It took a lot of work because, honestly, vulnerability is a daily choice. And it's scary because by being vulnerable, you risk being hurt. I think vulnerability means that it requires self-awareness. It requires humility. Those are difficult to do. But I don't think you can experience real love without real vulnerability. However, when that shows up in your marriage, when you get to be just you, 100% you, there's freedom in that, and it's safe, and you get to be who you are without any shame, knowing that your spouse truly loves you. So choose vulnerability.
Amen. Letter B. And as she pointed out during our mic check, because we wrote this together, I still made sure that certain subpoints like these, they all start with the same letter. So they all start with C, because Amy, which one was it? The one you just did?
No.
Oh, it's that one. Yeah, one of those. She's like, I would never use the word cultivate, but I'm like, it's the letter C. Okay, letter B starts with the C. It is champion each other. As husband and wife, we want to be each other's, like biggest supporters, biggest cheerleaders, because thriving couples have a mindset. And here's the mindset. We are on the same team. We were told this in our premarital counseling early on. It's something we'll share this in premarital counseling when we lead this. But and it's not just a cool phrase, you want to be on the same team. You've got to live that way. The goal is not to just get what you want. That is part of marriage. I mean, you want what you want, and that's okay, right? As long as you're not trying to get that in a sinful way. But the goal should be to give what they need. And like, this is just for free. The more you learn to honor them, to prioritize them, to give what they need, the more they want to do that for you. That's true in really almost every relationship we have with people who are just decent. You know what I mean? Ephesians chapter 5 in the New Testament, it gives us an example. It gives us examples where we can succeed in this, specifically to husbands and wives. In Ephesians chapter 5, starting in verse 21, it starts with kind of an umbrella for the whole marriage, husbands and wives. It says in verse 21, my favorite number, submit to one another. Why? Out of reverence for Christ. Submit to one another. And then, verse 22, it speaks specifically to wives. And you'll often hear this, this is a tangent. Yeah, having her right here is so good. Usually I have to, if I can see her and she's like, don't stop. Like tangents. Anyway, okay, I'll stay on point. Verse 22, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. Honor is what this word means. Respect is what it means. And then verse 25 and 28, any of the ladies that are bothered by that, if you're not married, it's okay. Look at how many words are used for what is commanded of the wife, and then look at how many words for the husbands. I'm not even going to read them all for time. But verse 25, it says, husbands, love your wives. How? The way Jesus loved the church and gave himself up for her. It goes on for two other verses, but I'm going to skip down to verse 28. It says, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. Now, listen, we're called to all of that. First of all, it starts with submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. But so submit and honor, respect. I'm called to do that to Amy as well, right? It's not like because it says in the text that the wife is supposed to, it's not like because it says in the text the husband's supposed to love his wife as Jesus loved the church. It's not like she's like, I don't have to love Dusty. That's his. That's what the husbands have to do. These are examples that show the give and take of marriage, the reciprocal nature, to use a $10 word. This idea, it gives them what they need. Speaking of your spouse or your someday spouse, you're giving them what they need, but it's also a form of self-love. Because this is what literally the text says to the husbands. Love your wife the way you love your body. How do you love your body? For those of us that are healthy people, I don't just mean physically, but like healthy mentally, you take care of yourself. You don't stand in the middle of the road when a car is coming. Like you know, and hopefully you go beyond just surviving. You want to thrive. Okay, love your wife, but love your spouse that way. Amy loves me in that way, really, truthfully, better than I do her. But it's the example given for husbands. We're all called to this. But think about it. If you want respect and honor, the best way to get it, you know this. Some of you like me, you teach your kids this. You want to be respected? You give respect. Hey, adults, married folks, that works in the marriage as well. I say you, any of us, if we find ourselves constantly demanding that we don't get enough of this or you don't treat me like this enough, there's probably a place for that with certain language, right? But the starting place is asking that question that Amy asked earlier. Are you becoming that kind of person? Are you giving that? It works both ways because, as Genesis says, the two, when they're married, they've now become one. This was your favorite.
I know.
C, yeah.
C, cultivate friendship. What does that mean?
She doesn't like the word cultivate.
Build, cultivate, but it's good because we're going C's. Okay, Ecclesiastes 9:9 makes me think of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Sorry, focus. Ecclesiastes 9:9 says, enjoy life with your wife whom you love. The word enjoy matters. God didn't design things just to be a commitment and rigid and boring. No, he wants you to like each other. If I weren't married to Dusty, I'd still want to be his friend. This guy is a hoot to hang out with. We laugh a lot, and I love having conversations with them and spending a lot of time with them.
Except when I start going on the podcasts or start talking about the news, then she just shuts it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if I'm honest, I mean, there's moments when I don't want to be with him, you know, and I'm sure he is the same. I think the worst thing I've ever said, I came in from working in the yard one time, it was a long time ago, and I was mad and you said something and I was like, I love you, but I don't like your face right now. So, but again, it made us laugh and whatever. But all in all, he's my favorite person to get to be with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here is a question worth asking. Do I genuinely enjoy being with this person even when nothing physical is involved? Physical intimacy, man, it's an important part of marriage and a really fun part of marriage, you know, if we're honest. It connects us in unique and meaningful ways, but friendship, that's what carries a marriage through the everyday life. It's in the car rides, the conversations at the end of the night, the inside jokes, the laughter, and it's even in the difficult moments, you know. Friendship in many ways, it's the foundation that makes everything else stronger, even the physical side. So work hard to cultivate a healthy friendship.
Letter D, communicate honestly and with clarity, but the fill in the blank is either communicate or honestly. I don't remember which one it is for fill in. But, and you know this, even if you're not married, I think you know this, because communication is just essential in every relationship. But communication is where relationships succeed or where they begin to slowly sink. Now, it's easy to feel, and I'm using that word on purpose, it's easy to feel the temptation of thinking that like my partner should just know how I feel and how I think without me having to tell them, right? Maybe you've been tempted. Maybe you have that conversation on the way here to church. Like, I shouldn't have to tell you. You should just know. Now, over time, you will learn to discern much of how they think and how they feel, but that takes years. It doesn't not take, like, go do a course in mind reading, right? That's not how it works. So here are a few keys to clear and honest communication. Say what you feel and what you want. Now, because they're not mind readers, your spouse, your partner, tell them honestly what you think, how you feel, and what you want, but do it without attacking them, right? This is what you want. Here's another key. Patiently help them understand you, right? Like if they're not mind readers, then help them help you, right? Don't punish them for not knowing. Teach them how to love you well. Listen the way you want them to listen to you. It's part of that reciprocal part. Listen not just to be able to respond. Listen so that you can understand what they want. This was hard for me early on. This was hard for me in marriage and in ministry. I'd hear a little bit of what's going on, and I struggled with arrogance. I use the past tense because I feel like I'm not at that place anymore because life has a way of humbling you. But I felt like I hear a little bit. I'm like, oh, I got it. Here's what you need. And I'm like going to fix it, right? Instead of hearing to understand her heart and how she was feeling, not just to respond. Learn to ask questions to get to the heart of it. And learn each other's styles. Here's what I mean. Like, how do they process and express their feelings? How do they give and receive love? Like the book, The 5 Love Languages. Learning that about each other. This is all key. We'd said earlier, Amy talked about embracing vulnerability. Communication is where vulnerability is actually chosen and worked out. Because it's one thing to say, hey, be vulnerable. It's another thing to clearly and honestly sit down and say, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I need, here's what I want in this marriage. Healthy communication doesn't happen by accident. You invest in it, time, energy, and if need be, money, right? Whether that's therapy, marriage counseling, reading books, buying dinner for a couple that you look up to, asking questions so that you can learn how to listen well, you can learn how to speak honestly, and do both of those without tearing the other one down.
Letter E. We're almost done. So excited. Letter E, confront conflict. This one's a booger. Sorry.
Booger. Booger and hoot.
I know.
Used tonight. I love it. It's Missouri coming out of her.
We know that every couple fights. So the question isn't, will you have conflict? But the question is, how are you going to handle it? Some things we've learned and are still learning. Don't ignore it, but learn how to fight fair without attacking each other.
And we use that word fight in a non-literal way.
Oh.
No, I agree. We both use that phrase.
Okay.
Just want to make sure. We fight fair, we argue fair.
Thanks. Part of this means that, like kind of what Dust was saying, you have to make space for each other's personality differences. For example, Dusty wants to talk about everything immediately. And like he said, he's a verbal processor. So man, he is breaking it down. He's analyzing it. He wants to know the why behind everything. It's great fun. Yeah. And so that's kind of how he does it, to where I don't always know what I think right away. I feel before I think. So sometimes I need time to process before I'm ready to talk. And
I found this picture from our Missouri days. Very pixelated.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But look at
That's
this.
it.
First of all, she married me, and I looked like that. I'm just,
Oh, they don't know the long hair.
But look
yeah.
I'm guessing I'm saying, let's just fight right now. Who cares that the youth group's here? Let's talk. And she's like, anyway,
Yeah.
you can take that off. It'll.
Oh my gosh,
Great.
that's terrible. I have no idea where I'm at. Okay, me. So Dusty was aggressive like that. For me, I already did that too. Sorry. I feel things first. I need time to process before I think. So it's like the waiting game for him, which again, great fun for him. Both of these, they're not wrong. And if we expect the other one to think and feel exactly as we do, oh my goodness, we're just gonna misinterpret each other big time.
Yeah.
So about a year into our marriage, we did this communication assessment, probably the best thing we've ever done.
Yep.
And we learned how differently we handle conflict. Again, Dust was, the tests revealed,
Yep.
this isn't me.
You already knew it.
Yeah, the test revealed that Dust was blunt. He always said exactly how he was feeling, not really taking my feelings into consideration. But the thing was, once he said everything, he felt great.
Yeah.
And to him, conflict over. To where I'm like, what just happened? For me, conflict intimidated me. And so I would just shut down. I would get real quiet. And often I would agree to things that I really didn't feel just because I would do anything to end the argument. Mm-hmm. So, and then, the fun part, I would go away and I would process. And then the fun part for Dust is 2 nights later, I'd be ready to talk about it. And he's like, what are you talking? So again, we don't approach conflict the same way anymore because again, we've worked so hard to build that mindset of we're a team. We're on the same team. We really work to learn how to fight fair. Dusty is a lot better at considering my feelings when he says, the difficult things. And I feel like I'm better at just asking, hey, can I have just a second? Because I really want to say what I'm feeling, but you're coming on strong, dude. So we've gotten better at arguing. Yep. Craig Rochelle wrote, healthy couples fight for resolution. Unhealthy couples fight for a personal victory. Confronting conflict isn't about winning the argument. It's about protecting your marriage.
And letter F for Frizzell. No, I'm just kidding. But it is commit daily. Daily. No matter where you're at in your marriage, in terms of what year, how good you feel about it, how long you've been married. We don't build a thriving marriage in a moment, but in the daily, small, often unseen choices that we make for and with one another. The big feelings, which are awesome, are going to come and go. Well, some of them are awesome. Some of them are not awesome. But they're going to come and go. So will the big moments and the big seasons. But neither the big feelings, the big moments, the big seasons, those aren't what's going to build and sustain a marriage. So let's take a trip. We need to get away. That might be a great thing. But it's going to take more. That's not going to solve everything. Commitment is a choice every single day. Healthy marriages are built on top of consistent, intentional investments like learning to communicate, learning to listen, learning to deal with conflict in whatever way is going to work for you as a marriage. Not what's just going to work for me. We have to talk about it right now. Not just what is going to work for Amy in year 1 or 2. Let's just not talk about it at all, right? You're going to figure out a way to complement for the marriage. But not once. You don't do this once. You do this over and over and over again. And listen, it's work, but it's worth it. It's the most important relationship on earth. Jesus in Matthew chapter 19, verse 6, he quotes Genesis, what we read earlier, and then he says, they're not 2, but they're 1. And then Jesus says, so let no one separate what God has joined together. But marriage, and so he's speaking about divorce a little bit, but the key isn't like, survive your marriage. It's not what Jesus is saying. The scripture makes it very clear you want to thrive in your marriage. We work on most of us in here, we work on our careers, on our health, right? So why wouldn't we work on the most important relationship in your life? Thriving marriages are not built on feelings that last. They're built on choices that we repeat as a couple. Now, Amy and I, we didn't find a perfect partner. We believe we're perfect for each other because we've chosen to be, right? And not perfect, ever. We didn't step effortlessly into our marriage. And she mentioned this earlier, but we built it. We worked. And I believe, she hates it when I'll say things like this because she's just more humble than me, but I believe we have a thriving marriage. It's not perfection, but it's progress, it's growth, it's forgiving, it's failure, and it's working at it again and again as we learn. This didn't happen because we found the right person, but because with God's help, we're becoming still the right people.
Our marriages are a major priority. But this just isn't about marriage. Imagine you walk into a house and you see a crack on the wall. No big deal, it's small. But over time, this crack is just spreading like crazy. And then all of a sudden, like your doors, you're having a hard time shutting the doors. And things just are kind of feeling a little off. I think it's safe to say you probably don't have a wall problem, you might have a foundation problem. Some of you're seeing cracks in your marriage. There's tension. There might be distance. The same argument is on repeat. And maybe you have been putting in the effort. You've worked on communication. You are trying harder. And oh my gosh, that matters, right? But for some of us, the issue is deeper. It isn't just habits, it's the foundation that we're building on. Because the truth is, I don't think no marriage was meant to thrive on two imperfect people just trying harder. Because at some point, we all hit empty. And that's not failure, that's a signal. It's an invitation to build on something stronger than ourselves.
And this is what this was the image he gave in the end of his Sermon on the Mount, longest recorded sermon that we have of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 7, around verse 24, he tells about two different people that are building a house. Same materials, same environment, and then a storm comes, and it's the same storm for both people. The rains, the winds, the pressure hits these homes that were built. The difference wasn't the storm. The difference was what these two houses were built on. One was built on sand. One was built on a solid foundation. Because it's not if the storms come in your marriage and in your life. It's when. Every marriage is going to face pressure, conflict. It's going to go through seasons. So one of the goals is not to find a relationship without storms. You want to build a marriage that survives the storms, but also even can thrive in the storms. One of the things Amy mentioned in this cultivating friendship, in retrospect, when you've been married for a long time, or even in friendships you've had for a long time, a lot of times when you gather at important dinners and meals and moments, what do you talk about? What do you reminisce about? A lot of times it's those really difficult moments in the past. Because you didn't just survive them, you were able to thrive together. So here's the key. Jesus isn't just saying, build your marriage on something solid. Good communication, conflict skills, listening, habits. He's not just saying that. He's saying, build your marriage, build your life on me. This is what he says literally at the end of his Sermon on the Mount. But also in Colossians chapter 1, verse 17, it says, in Jesus, all things, everything in the universe, out in space, but right down into your living room between you and your spouse. It says, in Christ, all things hold together. Some of you are trying to build your life, your relationships, and your marriage on feelings, on chemistry, on hope. Maybe you're crossing your fingers. But if the foundation underneath you is shaky, it's not going to matter how good things look on the outside, like the cosmetics. Thriving marriages don't start with the right person, the right pictures, even though all of that's great. They start with the right foundation. That foundation is not, the foundation is not better communication. It's not better habits. It's not even a better spouse. That's not the foundation. The foundation is always and forever Jesus. Some of you here tonight, you don't need a better relationship. You need a new foundation all together. You need Jesus in your life, in your heart. But back to relationships as we close. Don't focus, to say something we've said a bunch because repetition matters. Don't focus on finding the right person. Put your focus, when it comes to relationships, on becoming the right person. And as you do, you won't just have a marriage that lasts. You're going to have a marriage that survives and thrives. So I'm going to ask you if you'd stand with Amy and I as we close. One thing I really liked about, I liked having you up here because you're Amy, but also every time she talked, I got to drink water. Usually it's only like a little bit down. Now it's almost out. What? This is part of whatever I'm thinking as it comes out. Before I pray, if you've been coming to church, maybe invited by a friend, and you're not a Christian, but you've been investigating, you've been seeking, maybe you've even been praying. And if you're at a place tonight where you're like, I believe that Jesus is who he claimed to be, and I want to become a Christian, I want to be baptized, I want to say yes to Jesus. That's why we exist. And so if you want to be baptized or any other decision you have when it comes to faith, if you want to pray with somebody, to my left, to your right, Pastor Derek, and I'll be over there. There's some decision counselors. We'd love to pray with you, help you take that next step in faith. But Amy's going to pray, and then we'll be dismissed.
Jesus, thank you for creating the idea of marriage and relationships, and it's just, I don't know, I love it. I love being married, and so thank you for teaching us about it, and I pray tonight that people were encouraged. I pray that more than anything, they see how much you love them and that you want great things for them, whether it's marriage or not. But God, I pray that we get to be you in the world. Help us to work on ourselves to be more like you so that we can show others maybe and help others along the way as we're learning. Jesus, thank you for tonight. Thank you for this being over. Amen.
Amen. Hey, love you all. We'll see you next Thursday.